Welcome to the Fine Print, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Caleb Teskey, coming at you with another fantastic guest today, as always. And as always, I do want to give a couple shout outs before we start the show to some of my previous guests, Christian and Jennifer Engel from Ratu's Cannabis Supply down in Wilmington, Vermont. Leslie Engel King from the Foundation of Cannabis Unified Standards. Rob Skur just dropped a new project here with Soul Child called Loch Ness. And, I'm going to keep plugging this with Dustin Hawksworth from Fat Nugs Magazine because that was a fantastic interview. And I really enjoyed speaking with Dustin. He's really speaking my language in terms of the cannabis industry. And I do want to just plug a couple things I got coming up before I bring my guest out. On Sunday, I got Joel Bedard. Bedard, I don't know if I'm saying that right. It sounds French to me, Joel. Joel's an OG in the hemp game. I'm super excited to have him on. And then on Tuesday, the 28th, I've got Tom, the Ganja delivery guy. Tom's been on the show before. I got his sticker right there on the wall, that Spartan sticker. That's Tom. Thursday, I got Doe Smith from Doughboy Farms. On December 3rd, I've got Lubo Packaging. I've been speaking with them. They're coming on the show. On the 7th, I got Glenn Anderson. That's sure to be a wild one. And then we got Brianna Woodward, who did my logo on the 10th. In-House Genetics on the 12th. That's going to be a fantastic interview. And then Tim Blake on the 14th from the Emerald Cup. And boy, I seem to have lost my guest here. His video cut out there. Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. I'm going to bring – he must have heard me. Yeah, and without further ado, I'm going to slap the logo up here. I had the pleasure of meeting this guy at the Far Side show a few weeks ago in Stowe. And wham, bam, it's Nick Heilig. Heilig Art. Nick, thank you for being here tonight, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I love to be here.
Yeah, cool. Before we do anything serious, would you give us a 5-minute life story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Vermont, actually in Castleton, Vermont. Kind of had a low-key upbringing, spent a lot of time in nature. I drew a lot. I really got into drawing in high school. We had a great art teacher that kind of inspired us to compete every week. So every week we had to do a single drawing. It could kind of be in any style, any subject we wanted to do. And he would hold a contest. So there'd be a first place, second place, third place winner each week. He'd tally points of the students, whoever won. And at the end of the year, he would gift some art supplies. So it was kind of like a fun way of just getting everybody motivated to do something cool every week and then not stop drawing. So kind of my journey started there. Didn't really think I was going to go to college, but my parents insisted that I go. So I wrote my college essay the day it was due to UVM, went up to UVM, graduated from UVM with a studio art degree. Like I said, I didn't think it was going to be my path. So surprised I even went. But once I got there, it seemed like art was the only thing I really had any interest in. So I definitely spent all my time drawing. I told my professors that the whole time during class, I would be drawing as well as taking notes. And a couple of people were skeptical at first, but generally they understood that I was one of the most active students in class normally. But I drew my entire college career. So every single course, UVM is a liberal arts school. So I had to take a bunch of college courses in various fields. And I paid attention. I did good in those classes, but really I was just drawing constantly. And kind of, so in college, as part of a studio art degree, you have to do the whole learning how to draw naked people and a lot of sketching, a lot of charcoal. And my style is definitely more graphic design. And so after I did a few years of nonstop pencil work, I was so fed up and tired of it that I just switched to using a pen. So at first I was using a Pilot pen. That's what I used to write all my notes with. And then a homie in college introduced me to Micron pens. I started using those and they're incredible because they don't bleed at all. So it kind of upped my inking game. So I spent 2 or 3 years just working with a pen, just sketching with a pen, not touching a pencil or eraser ever. And the style became very tribal tattoo. kind of the reason for that, just taking like mistakes and building them into something interesting, like a tapered line. So I started playing with line weight a whole lot. Artwork very, very much like looked tribal-esque. And then I started doing a lot of hip hop through a crew of skateboarders I was hanging out with in Burlington. The hip hop led to live painting. So I was doing some hip hop projects and then also emceeing for a DJ collective called Mush Post. They were like a collective of DJs playing dubstep, probably a couple of years before it hit America, a few years after England. But that was my introduction to live painting. They had a big show one night. They asked me if I would come out and paint. I had tubes of craft paint and like a can of air, and I was like shooting the craft paint from like 15 feet away, and then using the can of air to kind of move the paint around on the canvas. I had some cutout elements that I spray tacked and put up at the end of the night on the canvas. There was like blue tape on the canvas I was ripping off into the bass drops. So very much not what I do today. At the end result of that wasn't something that was really in my style, but it was very theatrical, and it was kind of my first attempt at trying to navigate painting like as a performance, like as action painting versus like as a studio piece. And that kind of, that began my career with live painting. I did a couple of small festivals in Vermont. I believe the first
don't get too far ahead of me, Nick.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was just gonna say, I believe the first one was Liberate Festival, and then from there on, I kind of went full-time performance painting, and that's the story of my youth.
Can I back you up a little bit before we get into that stuff? Because I want to dive into that. But you also mentioned that maybe your folks wanted you to be like a lawyer or a doctor, and maybe you had an uncle that was into art, and I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, for sure. So my parents, God bless them, they were great parents, but they were definitely worried about me pursuing an art career. My brother's a lawyer in New York City. We both did really well in school. Like I had straight A's. I was a smart kid, but I had no desire to do those jobs. And they really wanted me to go into business or be a doctor or lawyer, something more secure, which I totally understand coming from the perspective of a parent. But I had one really cool uncle that lived on a sailboat, and he was a painter. He also did stonemasonry, but he did pretty cool like watercolor landscapes. Him and his wife lived on the sailboat. They would sail around and stay at like big mansions and do like stonemasonry, like either a wall or a new chimney, fireplace. And so they would kind of house sit for these people that were very well off. And in between that, they would just sail around, did whatever they wanted to do. And I always really admired that as a kid. I thought, how cool to live on a sailboat. There's a couple of pictures of me as a little kid, like in the little bubble coming up from the deck. And it's probably one of my favorite pictures or early memories. So yeah, definitely there was a mixed response in the family of me pursuing an art career. And I think that just comes along with, my parents' acknowledgement of how difficult it is to make a living off of your own labor, let alone in the creative field.
And you also mentioned, going to college. I feel like on the phone you said you weren't even like planning to go to. You wanted to do like electrician or carpentry or something like that.
Yeah, we had always been really active as kids, helping my dad out. He had a side job doing carpentry and maintenance for some condos. So I always had kind of an interest in doing something with my hands. That turned into heavily artwork in college. But previous to that, I figured, I was going to do some type of a trade. I knew my older brother was headed to Ivy League bound, and we didn't come from a lot of money. So I knew it wasn't really an option for me. Luckily, my mother was nice enough to get a job at Castleton State College. So I got tuition or admission to any state school. So I think that's a big factor in me, honestly, being able to pursue an art career after college, was I had tuition or admission. So I had not really any college fees between the loans that I got and the benefit that my mom bestowed upon me. It allowed me to, out of college, continue to do artwork, pursue hip hop, gave me the time to develop my voice in a creative way. So super grateful for that.
That helps a lot. I know
Big
some other
time.
people that were in that same boat, and and shameless slap here. I'm with Nick Heilig.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I like to slap that up every 10 minutes or so if I remember. Now,
Okay.
the other thing I want to ask you about before we get into the art is this story you told me about what happened at Higher Ground. And
yeah.
if you wouldn't mind recounting that, I'd love to, if you'd share that with us. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's not normally part of the my go-to intro story. So this is the deep dive. These are the good facts. Yeah, I had a crazy incident. So we were kind of talking about how life is precious, and I've had a few run-ins with death a few times in my life. And one of those incidents was in Vermont. Shortly after college. This is when I was pursuing the hip hop career. So we went to a Redman concert at Higher Ground. This is, I think, shortly after the venue had moved to South Burlington. And I was really excited because I had a really good friend. His girlfriend had Redman's number. They were in contact. We were going to hang out after the show. So I had a blunt of Diesel Homegrown in my ear, ready to go. I was so excited the whole night. Show was great, but I was really there just waiting to go to this after party. So end of the night comes, and I was like one of the first people out of the building, right? My car is parked in the back of a parking lot. So I'm walking through the parking lot on my phone already with my buddy and his girlfriend who are still inside the venue. And I'm saying, hey, you guys, like, all right, I'm ready to go. Like, shoot me the address. I'll be there. And this figure from the shadows comes walking up and starts asking me, like, if I want to fight, if I'm beefing. And the whole time, I'm ignoring him. I'm on the phone. I'm trying not to pay him attention. I don't know who he is, what he looks like. I'm just like, no, man, go away. Like, I'm doing something. I don't know who you are. Long story short, he pulls out a knife on me. Me being a native Vermonter and kind of naive, I didn't back away from him. I just kind of stood there in a little bit of shock, honestly. But I said to my buddy on the phone, I was like, yo, bro, like, this kid just pulled a knife on me. You might want to get out here. And at this point, it was the first time I put the phone down for a second, and I looked at the kid. And I just said to him, yo, like, dude, like, put the knife away. You're not going to stab me. Like, we don't know each other. You have no reason to stab me. Clearly, you're not going to stab me. And he put his hand on my shoulder and stabbed me. And I was in such disbelief after he had stabbed me. I didn't think he actually did it still. I thought he, like, flipped the knife away and kind of just, like, punched at me to, like, scare me, be a tough guy. And I put my hand down. My hand goes through my hoodie. It was my favorite hoodie, too, at the time. It's like a nice sleeveless hoodie.
That's the worst part of this story.
Oh, yeah. It was like a hoodie I cannot replace, that company. Put my hand through the hoodie. I feel like warm liquid just gushing over my hand. So I'm like, oh, no, like, he actually stabbed me. So at this point, I get a little bit worried because I don't know what the kid looks like. He jumps in a car, in the passenger side of a car, and I'm like, oh, crap, like, he's going to drive away and get away with this because, like, I don't even know what this kid looks like. So I jump behind the car and I start yelling the license plate into the phone to my buddy. And my buddy's like, yo, you got to calm down. I can't understand you. Like, whisper the license plate to me. Like, I can't understand you. So I calm down. I start whispering the license plate to my buddy, and the kid jumps back out. So I'm holding my wound with one hand, the phone in the other, and just backpedaling away from this kid. And all of a sudden I hear, like, where is he? Where is he? And I'm like, he's right there. And, like, point in front of me. He's like 10 feet away. And the security guard from Higher Ground straight up Superman tackles the kid. Later, come to find out that security guard, his name is Ninja Steve. Big ups, Ninja Steve. Thank you so much again. Thank you forever for keeping me alive. How lucky am I that the security guard was willing to go above and beyond and was actually trained in some martial arts. And yeah, crazy time. So the icing on the cake, the best part of the story is the local newspaper, I believe it was Burlington Free Press, they published a story like the next day, next Monday, front page. And it basically said that me and this random stranger got in a fight over somebody's fur coat and I got stabbed. So kind of completely made up just to grab headlines. But apparently the kid that stabbed me was kicked out of the show at the beginning of the night and managed to steal somebody's fur coat on his way out. So he was obviously waiting in the parking lot for his buddy to get out of the show so he could get a ride home, stole someone's fur coat so he could stay warm. And then the newspaper makes up this story about me and this other homie, like being best of friends, and his fur coat was stolen. So I went and got in a fight with somebody and got stabbed. Absolutely ridiculous. So of course they agreed that they didn't do any research and they completely printed lies. And so they printed a 2-page, 2-sentence correction in the back of the paper like a week later that nobody reads. And that was kind of my first, entry to the world of how media can work sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great entry.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Pretty much sums it up.
Yep. But at the time, luckily, I was a wild kid. I used to manual down Pearl Street and College Street on short decks and longboards. I was familiar with almost losing my life, so it really didn't faze me. If anything, it just turned into like a fun story to tell the people. But I was a little bit bitter for a year or two until I transitioned to mainly just doing live art. I was a little bit upset that I missed my chance to go hang out with Redman. Yeah.
Maybe that's the worst part. I thought your hoodie getting a hole in it was the worst part, but that might be it.
It's one of the two. They're the top two for sure.
Well, thank you for sharing. I'm glad you're all right. And
yeah, likewise.
Yeah, I want to transition to the live art tour because that was really the first thing that I noticed you doing that really caught my attention. And by the way, I first saw your art at Winooski Organics. I want to give those guys a shout out over there. Yeah, I saw a piece and it looks like you're wearing a hoodie with some of your art on it, maybe.
Yeah, we got the original Space Cat. So I'll be printing the new, the Toso Neko tour. The new cats are all going to get printed on this hoodie as well.
Awesome.
And those will definitely be at Winooski Organics. Once I have them out, I'll get them to the Winooski guys. They'll be at Ratu's with Christian, and then probably the Burn Gallery as well. Those are 3 places that I've been working with for a little while now. Burn Gallery for like over a decade, and I'm really excited that Vermont has finally opened up, and I'm looking forward to building more relationships with some more dispensaries and people in the game. Seems to be a great place to be at, and I've been waiting my whole life to have this outlet. Like I used to I wanted to paint cannabis stuff, but I never really understood like how I would market it, where I would sell it back when I was a little kid. And then there was this hurdle of like there's so much detail in it, and I'm so used to doing like kind of like a stylized realism that I never knew really how to paint all that detail. And once I figured out on tour how to like abstract it and make it fun and like a little more simplified, a little more minimalism, then I painted it for a full year. So it was a blessing to have done that series, and then for all these states to have legalized shortly thereafter. Really excited for the direction the country has gone with cannabis. Although, as you know, there's plenty of battles left to be fought. Vermont, I find it amazing that the weed has to at least be grown inside Vermont borders, right? That's how I take the scene to be, and that's a great first step. But obviously there's a bunch of more hurdles to make sure that it just doesn't become a monopolized market. And I think as we get federal legalization, obviously that's going to be a whole another thing, right? So we gotta stay vigilant vigilant, but at least, you know, things from my eyes are headed in the right direction. It's good to not be a criminal just for consuming cannabis. It's amazing.
I wasn't going to get into the weed stuff, but yeah. Okay. Thanks for sharing, Nick. Can we talk about the live art though? I'm really fascinated by this. I saw you. Obviously, we met at the Far Side show in Stowe a few weeks back, and you hollered at me, and I was like, who the fuck is this guy that knows my name that I've never seen before? And then you were doing some art there. I'd like to know sort of how this tour began. Was that your idea? Was it someone else's idea? And I'd also like to know maybe some of the bands that you've done artwork for, where you're doing your thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, big shout out to DJ Kanga, who was there opening up for that show, and Mr. Burns. Both cats, two of my friends. Kanga, one of my best friends from Burlington, and he's been there since the beginning. So DJ Kanga, Kyle, got me into performing hip hop live. At the time, I was freestyling at some parties and stuff, but then I met a real scratch DJ, this dude Kanga, or DJ Kanganade, and he was amazing, absolutely amazing. I happened to have a microphone at a party held by Big John, the owner of Riding High in Burlington. So a lot of connections. As you know, Burlington's a small place, Vermont's a small place. So it kind of started off slow with a hip hop. I was live painting at like Red Square and Half Lounge with DJ Kanga, and then this DJ collective I mentioned, the Mush Post, which was Nick Conklin and a whole bunch of cats that I went to college with. So it kind of started off organically just inside Burlington, and then like I mentioned, I started one year with Liberate. It was like a yoga and arts festival. That was probably either 2010 or 11, maybe 11 or 12. And then I believe my first festival art tour was 2013. And it really, honestly, it started super organically. I was performing out a lot with these DJs, the Mush Post and Kyle. And I ended up running into other musicians, meeting other DJs, meeting other bands. And so some of them asked if I would come paint at a show. And then it got to be enough eventually where I decided, hey, like I'm performing just as much as a band. Why don't I put together a tour poster? And everybody was asking, like, where are you going to be at? And it got to be a lot to try to keep up with trying to post things to the internet. So I figured, why don't I just plan out my whole summer, my whole spring, and start touring like a band. So it's something I guess I just decided to do because it seemed to make sense. It was already happening. All I needed to do was make a graphic for it. And I think, I mean, honestly, the first 3 or 4 graphics, they're just like quick Photoshop jobs where I pulled in some photos, put a cutout filter on it, threw up the tour dates, and it was classic quick graphic design that I didn't really have to spend much time on. But I know there's plenty of artists out there that sell that artwork, like Star Wars artists that just take photos of the frame of the movie and put a cutout filter on it and then put it up, or have it printed on canvas. And not throwing shade to anybody's hustle, but I feel like there's a proper place for that type of graphic design. And it's something like a starting band or an artist like myself for a tour poster that nobody's buying. I wasn't selling it to anybody. It was just, how can I get this graphic out? I don't want to waste a lot of time on it, but I want it to look colorful and pretty. And at the time, I think I was doing a lot of black and white work. So I felt it important to do some digital work and show people that side. And I had trained in college to work with a tablet and Photoshop. So I can do digital work. I just don't like it as much. Traditional work just feels much better. So yeah, the tour was super organic. It's gone through a few different iterations, and I could talk a little bit more about that later or right now. But
right now, yeah.
Yeah. So I tend to do. When I started, I was just doing black and white, and I was painting with acrylic paint. And really, the acrylic paint was too heavy bodied for me to get the lines I wanted to get. I wanted to get nice, clean graphic design lines. So the first couple of years were a struggle trying to use acrylic paints and work. I also ran into the issue of everybody wanted to buy color works from me. They wanted color prints or t-shirts, and all I had was black and white reproductions. So I think year 2 or 3, I switched over to color. I did color for a year or 2, and then I typically go back to black and white every few years. So this summer, I was on the Toso Neko tour. About midway through so I did a decade of touring every summer full time from May till September at least. This year, it was actually February till this November. So it's pretty much the entire year I toured. But I headed East Coast in August. So I did August till mid-November on the East Coast. But about midway, year 4 or 5, I discovered calligraphy ink, and I started doing all my black and whites in calligraphy ink. And that medium for me is just so much better for my style, for clean lines, for decisive, bold artwork. Calligraphy ink is the best. So yeah, every year I kind of switch it up. I don't know what I'm gonna do next summer yet, but that's what I'm gonna spend some time the next couple of months thinking of, and get prepared for the springtime, because I know once the springtime comes, it's going to be shows nonstop 4 or 5 nights a week.
Yeah. Did you say you were also on the road with Twiddle a little bit?
Yeah. So in 2015, they came out to Colorado to do a tour, and I believe it was 10 shows in 12 days. And we kind of did like a star across Colorado. It wasn't like a nice clean loop. When I plan my tours, everything has to make sense travel-wise, and I don't do any crisscrossing or back and forth across the country. As soon as I head East Coast, I stay East Coast until I'm ready to head back to Colorado. But we did a star across Colorado. It was fast and furious. I did a piece every single night, up on stage with them actually. And then that summer, I believe in 2015, maybe a little bit in 2016, I did a lot of stage painting with Twiddle and other bands. And the stage painting is fun. Inside venues, it's pretty, I can accomplish it reasonably. But at festivals, the festival stages tend to bounce a whole hell of a lot from the base. So it kind of makes it really hard to accomplish any type of clean artwork. That's not to say I wouldn't be open to doing more stage paintings in the future, but I think the style will definitely be a little more psychedelic, trippy, hippie splashes, and not a lot of defined lines. Or at least I'll do that part after I get off the stage. But yeah, 2015 was a great year for the boys and I, and I continue to work with them since then. We took a little break during COVID, as a lot of people did. I know the band's pushed on with kind of limited shows. I took a 2.5-year hiatus altogether. And that was kind of just a forced decision of, there was limited space to begin with. And I didn't want to jump back into the game while the whole music industry was struggling, and there wasn't necessarily room for me. And I also didn't want to take away from any merchandise sales. Like I'll typically have my prints out with me when I live paint for bands. A lot of the larger bands who I consider my friends, and I've worked with dozens and dozens of times, I might just go out and paint for them without a print rack and without making any sales. But then the majority of shows I do, I bring along a print rack and I sell reproductions because I do have to make a living. But there are some shows that are just super special. Twiddle was just out here for their last Colorado show before they take a hiatus. So I luckily I got in to paint that show at the Mission Ballroom. And that was amazing. I did a tree kind of like the picture that you had posted up. The particular picture you posted was from Lay Getaway with Lay Special. And I did 3 trees because it's the trio of them.
I love those guys. They're fucking killer.
Yeah, amazing. One of my favorite bands, which I'd love to give a shout to some of the bands I've worked with over the years for sure.
Yeah, please.
So yeah, Lay Special, actually, I kicked off my tour this year, the Toso Neko tour, with them at Cervantes. And I did a 3 cats, oddly enough, because I always do something with 3s. And Lay Special, that's always how I'm going to get down. I tried to tailor the Toso Neko tour, the images to each performance. Like I did a bunch of aquatic cats with a band called Annie in the Water. I did some some cat dog crossovers with a band called Dogs in a Pile. And so, yeah, all these performances recently, I've really been trying to hone in onto something specific about the event or the band and connect the subject matter to that somehow while also maintaining everything being cats. But yeah, over the years, Twiddle honestly is the first, band that kind of took me under their wing and let me actually tour with them. Strange Machines and Genome Project have done the same at various times. I painted a whole bunch with the Kitchen Dwellers, Pigeons Playing Ping Pong, Magic Beans, Yak Attack. Like I said, Dogs in the Pile, Annie in the Water. The Main Squeeze is one of my favorite. They come through Colorado usually at least every year. They've been playing the Upslope Get Down the past few years, which is like a funk forward festival that I actually organized the live painters for. So always look forward to seeing them. There's dozens and dozens of bands though that have welcomed me in, comped my tickets, gotten me everything I needed. I have actually traveled a few times with Genome Project and Twiddle inside some tour bands, and that gave me an insight and a true appreciation and a respect, like an awe of respect for how bands maintain life on the road and continue to tour year after year. That's not easy. With a couple of people, one person or two people, it's tough enough, but with 4 or 5 people coordinating it, I have so much respect. It's ridiculous.
Have you ever had any disasters or anything that's gone wrong while you're live painting at a show?
Oh yeah, definitely. There's been many a time where things kind of haven't quite gone my way, either because of my own fault or because of somebody else's, just trying to be mean on purpose or not understanding what I'm trying to do. I think a great example was probably when I met Pigeons Playing Ping Pong, actually. I was scheduled to open up All Good Festival with Twiddle. It was the first set of the day, so I believe it was like at noon. And I get there, and it was supposed to storm, and I kind of looked up at the sky and saw like it was going to come down. And where they parked me from the main gates was about a half an hour walk, 25-minute walk. So I loaded up all my gear. I had a backpack, I had my easel, I had the canvas that I was going to paint, which is poster size, like I think it was 24 by 36. And I hike it all the way to the main gate. And I had a special badge that said Twiddle backstage, like the date. And I walk up to the gates and they're not letting me through. And I'm like, oh, well, I really got to get through. I got to talk to somebody. Like I'm performing. When the gates open, like Twiddle is on the stage, I have to be up there ready to paint. So please let me through. They wouldn't let me through. And eventually they grabbed the head of security. So I'm talking to him and I'm like, man, I have like all the proper credentials. Like I had the little laminate on my shirt. Like I have to get through. I'm 25 minutes away from my car and it's about to open up and downpour. That's going to ruin my board. Like it's just paper. It's archival foam board, which has a paper surface. So head of security wouldn't let me through. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I just have to accept this. How can I like mitigate what's about to happen? I see they got a bunch of fresh garbage bags because they're putting new garbage bags into a bunch of different receptacles near the gate. And I was like, could I at least have a couple of garbage bags? I was like, nope, no garbage bags. And I was like, oh, really? You're going to do me like that, bro? Like I'm coming here to work your festival. And this wasn't a random volunteer. This was head of security. So I was kind of like, okay, at this point, I feel disrespected. Yeah. So of course it starts downpouring. And at that point, one of the regular volunteer security people sees what I just went through and comes running over with a garbage bag and was like, here, dude, like I saw all of that. I'm so sorry. And I tried to get it on, but it was too late. Like the board was all wet. The plastic was sticking to the board. It just wasn't happening. So I grabbed the board and dragged it through the mud. They let us through 5 minutes later. Dragged the board through the mud all the way up to the stage and held it up, and it was all floppy. And all the guys, the Twiddle guys were out on stage. And they're like, oh my God. Ryan's like, what happened? I explained to him, and I was like, I can't do this now. It's soaked. So the Twiddle guys told Pigeons what had happened, and I ended up painting on stage with Pigeons Playing Ping Pong the first time I ever met the dudes. And that was it was like 45,000 people, I think.
Whoa.
So it was a great performance, and I had to, I had to figure out how to overcome and simmer down and not take it personally. And I think, honestly, anybody trying to pursue a career in the festival scene, if you're a performer or somebody that's trying to bring installation artwork or a hooper, um, you have to go there knowing that some things are definitely not going to go right immediately. That's the mindset you should go in with, because it's all a lot of festivals. There's a lot of volunteer work, so it's a lot of coordinating people that maybe are working with each other for the first time. There's plenty of volunteers that aren't given all the information or don't ask the right questions, and so they don't have answers for you. So it's very easy to get upset, especially as a live painter. It's usually the list that is most often forgotten at will call or the gate where they trade you your ticket for your wristband. You're told that you're on the list, and then you get there as a live painter, you're usually the list that was forgotten. So they have to radio in the event organizer. That person is usually busy putting out fires all around the festival because it's the first day or the day before.
Yeah.
So it might take an hour, 2 hours for them to arrive and usher you in with your laminate. So usually I'm prepared with an activity or something. I know I'm going to get to the festival. They're going to not know who I am. I'm going to say, no problem. Here are my 100 laminates from all the festivals I've done. I'm just going to hang out and smoke a joint, and you tell me when y'all are ready. You live and learn. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Are there any bands on your bucket list that you would like to perform with maybe and do some live art with?
Oh, geez. Man, I would say immediately Polo and Pan. I guess I don't really think of it as like, I guess a few of the bands that I would really want to perform with, if I'm going to be able to perform with them, it's going to happen naturally and organically. Like I'll see them somewhere, make friends with them, and then paint, as opposed to just trying to like reach out to them and be like, hey, I love your work. I got to work with you. But yeah, Polo and Pan, maybe like Sophie Tucker would be a great one. I have seen them a few times at festivals and painted alongside their music, but I haven't worked with them specifically. Honestly, some of the hip hop cats who I really respect when early on getting into live painting was through hip hop. So maybe like Aesop Rock or Homeboy Sandman. Like the Locksmith, I'm always sharing his work on Instagram. He's a really incredible lyricist who his content I just really connect with. It's kind of like just calling out the bullshit of celebrity culture and American imperialism. Maybe like No Name, Sarak, like a bunch of hip hop cats. And then I feel like the bands will mostly happen organically through the scenes. I'm already painting at a bunch of the festivals that have jam bands, punk, rock, reggae. Cali Roots Festival is a great time. Like I feel like working with Modest Yahoo and Damian Marley were a couple of highlights of my career for sure.
Sick.
But yeah, I'm so blessed already. I couldn't imagine wanting more out of this life, and even having the attention span to have more like deep connections and relationships with people who are in creative fields. I've been at the point of overload. When COVID hit, I was definitely on burnout after 10 years of touring without a manager or any support. That wasn't my own doing. It's kind of like I feel like as an artist to begin with, you're running a job of creating the art, and then you have a second job of marketing it and selling it. And then I'd say as being a performance artist, you have a third job of traveling, setting up, breaking down, and marketing that side of it, like the performance side. So it just ends up being a whole lot of work to stay on the road full time. It's one thing to do it once a month. It's a great time out, and it's a relaxing evening getting to do something really incredible. But when you start doing it 4 or 5 nights a week, it really becomes a grind that you gotta be careful. You gotta fill up your tank again and take proper breaks. Make sure you're not partying every night.
Word up. Yeah, and I saw some of your flyers there. It wasn't once a month. It was fucking full right up. Yeah. I've got a comment here from Alex Grosser. It says, "That's me." I have no idea what that means, Alex, but thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Alex has been super supportive here.
Maybe the cat. He's saying the space cat.
Would you stand up for a second and so we can see the whole thing? Yeah, excellent. Cool. And I got a couple images I'd like to slap up here as well. And hey, I'm with Nick Heilig here. Bam, shameless slap. This was one that I found, and I sniped a couple off your Instagram. I hope you don't mind, but
please. Yeah.
Wham.
Oh, the MF Doom, yeah. Speaking of someone I would have loved to perform with, that would have been a fucking riot. Rest in peace. The Doom piece I did, actually, I painted two of them. The day his family announced that he had passed away, I stopped everything I was doing and I sat down and painted that. And, you know, I don't think there's any other MC that had more connections with the animation world through Cartoon Network, Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Of course, there was Samurai Champloo, which is very hip hop driven. The whole soundtrack was amazing, that's one of my favorite animes still to this day. But I think MF Doom really understood the quirkiness and the quirky creativity that a lot of artists thrive on. So it was really great to see the outpouring of people who made tributes when he passed away. And I'm super happy I'm a part of that. I just saw Amp Live bought one of my MF Doom t-shirts and he shared an Instagram post. He's working live, making some beats. And that was amazing. I didn't see it. So a friend sent me a message, just random, like, "Yo, is this your t-shirt?" And I was like, "Holy hell, that is so dope." Like, that's my absolute favorite thing is when I meet people and they've already seen my artwork, or I go to somebody's house and my artwork is up on the walls. And that's especially if they don't know me, or they know me but they didn't know that was my art. Little things like that is like, it just makes me know I'm on the right path. And it's good reinforcement. Artists definitely need that.
Yeah, well, I felt the same way when you hollered at me at that Far Side show. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Oh, that guy's going to be on this show. All right.
Well, you're very recognizable, and we had talked a few times, and I've been following your Instagram account, and really just, I find it refreshing, for one, the type of journalism you're doing. Digging into uncomfortable things is like what journalism is supposed to be. So like people you're ruffling feathers, and it's like, if you're not, then what are you doing? You're just an advertising mouthpiece at that point. So it's not journalism. So I really appreciate what you've been doing, and I've been paying attention. So I knew what you looked like. And I think me and my homie, actually, I was with DJ Kanga. We were sparking up a joint when I saw you. So
that was nice.
Or it might have been my homie Brian. I don't know if Kyle was out there yet. But
I believe it was Brian. Yes. Yeah. That was cool.
all the family in Vermont. Every time I get to come back and tour for a while, I see all the hip hop heads, and it's like a family reunion or like a high school reunion without having to go to a billion places. I know where all my friends are going to be at. They're going to be at, I think they got the First Friday art hip hop night, and we used to do like the lounge lizard. I used to do Hot Fire on the corner of North Winooski. It's just great times in Vermont. Really, really loving community in the hip hop scene, and just thriving still. It's good to see that every time I come back.
Yeah, it's definitely growing. And by the way, thank you for saying that. I appreciate the kind words, but this interview is about you, and I've got a few more pieces I just want to splash up here and hear what you got to say about them. This was one that caught my eye.
Oh, heck yeah. That one was actually a commission piece. So I made it at the same time as the Koi Elephant Tapestry. And it was a friend of a friend commissioned me. They had a Saint Bernard as a pet. And I hadn't done many pet portraits at that point. I think I had done maybe 2 cats. This was probably 2017-ish, because I was still doing those black and white tapered stripes in the back of everything. So that, yeah, the dog was one of my first experiments using acrylic paint on my foam board canvases. So typically I just work with inks. It's watercolor or ink and water, calligraphy ink on board. If I do use any acrylics, it's usually just a paint pen for like white highlights. But laying on a lot of heavy acrylics all over the board will really warp it and kind of destroy it. You kind of need to work on a wood board or canvas or something more proper. But this one, I just did the face in acrylics and it turned out great. Customer loved it. And I decided a couple years down the road, I needed to print some tapestries, and I thought it'd be cool if I mirrored the image, and that creates that really cool pattern in the background. So the original was just one dog. And then what you're looking at for the tapestry is a digital recreation.
Oh, that's a tapestry hanging. Okay, cool.
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
Put that back.
And so I'm looking forward to doing more of that work in the future. I've kind of, during the COVID years, I used that time to digitize a lot of work that I had fallen behind on, cataloging and making prints out of. And I have to catch up again after this tour now. I have to make a bunch of merchandise from the current series of Struggle Cats, the Toso Neko. But that's my least favorite thing to do. And it's very easy to get distracted by painting at shows. So for instance, the Far Side show wasn't a part of the official tour initially. I did a random rap night on a Friday. Mr. Burns happened to be there, and he asked me to come out a couple days later to that Far Side show. And I can't say no to a homie most times. And I love the Far. I was like, that's wild. Far Side is playing in Vermont. Like, that's something from my youth. Like, here we go, passing me by. I need to see this. And it was a surreal show to be at. Fucking amazing. Ooh, sorry if I can't swear, but
I'm gonna worry about that here, buddy.
Great. We'll bleep it out if we need to. Yeah, but I jumped on the opportunity to do that. I wasn't necessarily planning on painting it, so I believe I painted a mushroom piece. So during this whole tour, almost everything I've painted has been a cat. There have been a few exceptions, which were the cat dog crossovers, which were with a band called Dogs in a Pile. But a few of the dates I painted either pine trees or mushroom, kind of like landscape abstracts.
Kind of like this.
Yeah,
or maybe a little bit like this.
Exactly. I think that was one of my favorite mushrooms and one of the first ones. And they were dates where I just felt like I needed a day off of doing the cats, or they might have been a day where I was working on a cat sketch and I couldn't get the sketch finished in time to get it sized up for a show. And so I abandoned it to just let's do a quick mushroom abstract. Usually the mushroom abstracts that was the regular size, but I did a bunch of them that were 16 by 20, which is kind of like half size for me. And they were off nights or residency nights. I was doing a residency gig every Tuesday with a good friend, Connor Tyrone. And a lot of those nights, it was like, I'm here every week, so I can switch it up. I don't have to do a cat every single week. But I did, for the majority of the tour, I'd say about 2/3 of the dates were all different cat concept characters. And I could get into a little bit more about the Toso Neko tour if you like.
Also, I wanted to save the cats for last because I've got this beautiful shot that you sent me earlier. It seems like maybe the cats are your calling card, and I definitely I saved that for the end here. So yeah, please go right ahead, man.
Perfect. Yeah, so what you were just looking at were a few big cats. When I started out the tour, I was doing more house cats, and I've kind of transitioned over time into doing a lot of tigers and lions and cheetahs. I think there's a couple of reasons. I'm getting a fair amount of commission requests for people's house cats. So I feel like those pieces I'm going to take a little bit longer to plan now and make them specific cats of specific homes. Whereas the lions and the tigers are really fun to play with, kind of these bodacious, outrageous characters. So I've been planning a lot more of those recently. But when I started the series, my idea was just to paint a few Maneki Neko. I had not yet come up with a term Toso Neko, had not even an inkling I was going to paint that. So I wanted to do some maneki neko, which is the beckoning cat. It's the lucky cat you'll see outside of shops in Chinatown. It's actually from Japanese lore. There was a cat that became, it was known to bring good luck to visitors. So eventually they started making these little clay statues of the cat with one paw up and the fingers of the paw forward. So it's a very specific pose, and it's called maneki neko, and it means lucky cat or beckoning cat. And it's a really cool motif. I've always loved it. Tons of people have tattoos of it, and there's a lot of places where you can find hundreds of these clay statues gathered together. And just a really cool idea of like, if you put it outside your shop, it's supposed to welcome in prosperity and good fortune and sales. And it could also just be a good luck charm talisman in general, depending if the right or the left arm paw is up. So I started out with that idea. I painted a couple of them, and pretty quickly I began thinking of like, oh, what's the yin of the yang? Like, what is the balancing force to this lucky cat? Because my whole life and kind of increasingly in the last few years, I've not one to push devil's advocate, but I've been one to always push back and try to show the other perspective, the other side, and to also acknowledge the upside of the downs. Like, instead of like running away from depression and taking a happy pill and being happy 24/7, I feel like it's important to be sad sometimes and have that push you into new realms of reality, not necessarily better or worse, but just like a greater an expansion of your depths of emotion. And so I've been running with this idea of kind of like struggle and obstacles as actually being blessings. And so when I initially started thinking of the yin of the yang of the lucky cat, first thing pops into mind is, oh, is there like an unlucky cat? Okay, the black cat in Western culture. But in Japanese culture, there wasn't any unlucky cat per se that I could find or word for that term. So I started out with the idea of unlucky cat, but I was like, that's not really what I want to do, because I don't want to paint a bunch of unlucky things, or I don't want to sell prints of unlucky cats. That doesn't sound like something that somebody's going to spring for. And then I connected this idea of like, oh, struggle and obstacle. And struggle happens to be toso in Japanese. And I felt like toso neko, that has a great ring to it. So I thus was born the idea of toso neko, the struggle cat. And it's essentially like a charm, not an unlucky charm, but it's all of these cats who are going through struggles, and they might be, if their expression is one of bliss, they might be in the moment of transition from like a lifetime of struggle to fortune and payoff. Or they might be going through something really harrowing, and just it's a charm of like providing strength to people in need, or people about to go through something that's going to be really difficult for them. And I think it's really cool because it's not something that's been explored before. So the toso neko all have their paws down, and that's how you can tell the difference between the maneki neko and the toso neko. And I'm still going to paint a bunch of lucky cats as well. I just felt that it was important first to acknowledge this other side of life that people, sometimes we all run away from it because it's uncomfortable.
Well said, my man. Your video's breaking up a little here. I don't know if your phone's dying, but I'm almost out of shit here. I only have one more question for you, and you kind of beat me to it. I'm kind of pissed because you jumped the gun and you got me, because I always reach out to some of the homies and try to get an interesting story. And I reached out to the homies and I said, hey, anybody got some dirt on Heilig? And I got a message back from a dude that you mentioned who said you were also the best man in his wedding. And, that's Kyle at Kang and Nate. Yeah. He said you also gave him his name, perhaps. Also used to throw a quote, used to throw crazy underground parties, and he may or may not have said some shit in a battle that cut so deep his opponent dropped the mic and took a swing at him.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
That's my last note I got here.
That's good. Amazing. Yeah, Kyle, man, much love. The good homie from back in the day. Yeah, geez, we used to do these open mics once or twice a week, and eventually I started my own. So Kyle had some residencies as a DJ, and was kind enough to invite some of the local MCs up to cypher every once in a while, beginning, end of the night. So we were doing those a bunch, and then I decided, like, hey, there's a good community here in Burlington. There's at least a dozen MCs that just rap every day, all day. Let's have a little cipher somewhere. And there was this shop that opened up. I think it was called the One Pepper Grill. It only existed for a year or two on, like, I think it was North Winooski and North Street, somewhere along North Street in the old North End. And it was like dollar tall boys. We called it Hot Fire. It's like dollar tall boys, and, like, I don't know, it was like dollar hot dogs or some shit like that. And real grimy gathering would usually be like 24 dudes, a dozen MCs, and then a dozen people in the audience, maybe one or two chicks. And yeah, I think that was Dave Bissett with a tat on his neck came through, and just he got heated over a freestyle I had, because I was basically just telling him to, like, yo, like, don't bring the hate in here. We're just trying to have a fun cipher. Like, you don't have to be attacking anybody through your words.
Don't be an asshole.
Yeah, yeah. And he got real upset at that and swatted the mic out of my hand. And that microphone is now busted because it still works. It just, the grill looks a little funny. And, hey, 10 years later, I just got back to Burlington. Kanga's still got that mic. That's the secondary mic for rap night. So Burlington still using the Backwood MC mic after all these years. I fucking love it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm glad I reached out to Kyle. He's always got some fun stories about the hip hop world here. He's a great guy.
Heck yeah. Solid G right there.
Cool. And so look, I'm out of shit. I'm going to do one more shameless slap. Heilig art. Oh, that's what I wanted to ask you about. Your logo here. It says skill, not fame. Can you tell us why you put that on there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's fairly obvious that, what is kind of happened to society slowly is everybody, searching for their 15 minutes of fame, and people looking for to do the, what was it, the Big Dirty from Trailer Park Boys, like people looking for that get rich quick thing, or get famous fast thing. And I don't think that's healthy. I don't think it's a healthy metric. Looking at Instagram or whatever social media account you're on, TikTok, I don't think that popularity is a healthy gauge of value to society or self-worth, or really just a thing to pursue. I think that's, like, it's cool if you get some type of notoriety or fame and you can have an impact on the world, or it can help you make a living. That's great. That's, like, it should be a business goal. But it shouldn't be like something you base your self-esteem off of. So I've had a couple of different sayings, monikers not monikers, but sayings that I would take with me and pin up on my canvas, like underneath where I put my clip light to protect the canvas from getting dirty, would just be a little saying like life is water or skill, not fame. And there were just little mottos that would help remind myself and also other people about, like, things that actually have value, like life is water. Let's remember it. Like, let's be angry about, like, how much we're poisoning both our own and other people's water systems for silly consumer goods. And so I think, it really is just a message that it speaks to my heart, and it feels good to have that posted up. So when somebody looks and they're like, oh, here's how I follow this guy, and here's the marketing thing and the shallow Instagram, right next to that is an acknowledgement that, like, yeah, that's all bullshit. Who cares about it? Like, get skilled. That's what matters. Like,
Here's Ratu. Sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah.
Great interview. Heilig is the man. I just want to slap that up there real quick. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, blessings to Christian, the whole family. What a great place down there. I can't wait to be part of the event space that he's building too. He's really got it figured out. First time I went in there, I was just amazed at how many cool, unique little products he had. And now they've opened up the dispensary, and they have a whole bunch of homies. I think the Love Spun Homestead has been providing those guys with some pre-rolls. I love Alex and M. Those are some really good friends. So yeah, it feels, every time I get back in Vermont, it feels like just a family reunion and such a tight-knit community, which is really, you know, these days, that's everything. It's super valuable.
I talked to those Love Spun guys. I'm hoping to get them on the show as well. They seem like great people, and it looks like they're growing some chronic down there.
Yes, delicious, absolutely delicious. Just had a sample, and they're really interesting, beautiful people, and I'm sure they have some really crazy, cool stories to share about their life. Really unique.
Cool. And this one's not going to appear that well, but you sent me a bunch of images here.
Yeah, I'm gonna
throw this one up one more time just because I fucking love that. But yeah.
Heck yeah. Yeah, Mav Doom. Yeah, I wanted to give you just a little gallery shot of the recent prints I just put up on my Etsy. So this is kind of the first wave of Toso Neko cats that I created this summer. The tour was about 103, I think it was 103, 105 dates in total. Wow. So I think I painted 70 or 80 cats. I'm going to complete 108 cats. 108 is kind of a important number, a number I keep going back to. All my limited edition signed prints are 108 limited edition.
Why?
You know, there's a lot of reasons. I probably should have had a few of these written down, but it's a very important number to a lot of religions and ancient cultures and mythology and lore. My introduction to the 108 number was through, there's a Chinese novel. It's like a classic novel. I think it's called The Water Margin, and it's basically a story of bandits and like people on the fringes of society teaming up together to fight a corrupt government. And it's like 108 of these people who are destined to be connected to fight this just cause. And, you know, there's a lot of things like 1 and 8 add up to 9. It's the end before you go back to 10. There's just a lot of 108 like mala beads on like the monks' prayer beads. Just a lot of different coincidences. And every time I go out and that number is recognized by people out, somebody tells me a new story about why 108 is such a cool number. So it's just something I played with. There's going to be 108 cannabis abstracts, 108 gemstones, 108 cats. Pretty much all of my series since a few years ago, when I switched over to 108 for the prints. That's just the number I hit for everything. And I think at that point, after having done 100 renditions of some type of subject matter, I feel like I can say that I explored creatively what I can do with that subject matter at the moment. And then I need another, 2, 3, 5, 10 years before I go back to re-explore that subject matter. But until then, you really, you've only scratched the surface of how you can stylize and play around with that type of subject.
Nick Heilig Art. Check him out. Yeah, I'm out of shit here, Nick. I want to thank you for your time, and I always leave a little room at the end for my guests. If we missed anything that you'd like to hit on, or if you got any shameless plugs or shout outs, or you want to tell people where they can find your work. You said you have an Etsy. If you'd like to plug that, now is the time. Thank you so much for being here tonight, man. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Hey, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I guess, the last thing I didn't really touch on too much, the hoodies. I am making new batches of these hoodies. I have a couple of pop art images that I think everybody's going to go wild over. And then probably 2 or 3 of the cat designs I'll end up screen printing on hoodies. So just keep an eye on my Instagram. Once I have them made, or once they're in production, I'll put up a pre-sale link. So I'll nonstop be talking about that on my Instagram. And then keep an eye out for new cats. Probably every week I'll be dropping a new cat design onto my Etsy. The easiest way, it's a long enough link that the easiest way to get there is just the quick link in my Instagram profile. So just at the top of the page, Instagram is at Heilig Art with an underscore in between Heilig and Art, as you see on the logo there. But yeah, that's the quickest way. I got a bunch of quick links if you want to see me out on tour. Top of the page again under tour dates on Instagram. That'll bring you to my bands in town, or my Wix page, and that'll show you all the dates that I'm about to do. I think I have some shows coming up with B. Kells, who's a DJ, as well as Duffery. I think Yak Attack is coming to town. If I don't go, if I'm not hired by Gem and Jam to paint down in Tucson, I believe that's like February, like 2nd and 3rd. Yak Attack's going to be out here for Snow Stock at 10 Mile Music Hall. That's put on the Magic Beans. I love those guys, so definitely check that out if you're in Colorado. Yeah, I'd say just keep up to date at my Etsy that has all the quick links to everything, and I'm going to be posting a whole bunch this winter.
Nick Heilig, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to sign it off here. Please check out his artwork. It's phenomenal. And remember, the devil's in the details, and the details are in the fine print. Peace, guys.